What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Ray's Night Shift, where we talk everything streaming and everything related to it. So today we're going to be talking about lenses. I just figured out that, as you can see, this focal length is pretty close to my face. You really don't get much of my surrounding with this lens unless I move this camera way farther back. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep the camera more or less stationary exactly where it's at, and that meant I had to pick up a wider lens. Currently what you're seeing me through is a 28mm lens, and it goes all the way up to 70mm. Gross. So while it is a very good lens, I did want something that captured more of my background, so I went out and I picked out the Samyang. Now I'm going to be reviewing the Samyang along with the Sony Zeiss 16 to 35mm. I'm going to be going through the differences, and hopefully I help you pick which one's better for you. So let's get into it. So, fun fact, as I said before, this channel is for streaming, so I wanted something that catered more to my background. I actually showed my viewers a little more of, not only myself, but also everything around me. Right now, it's kind of limited. Like, it's really focused in on my face, which is fine if that's the look you're going for, but I wanted something a little more wide angle, something that shows a little bit more of my background. So I ended up picking up the Zeiss 16 to 35mm lens, and I also picked up the Samyang, the 14mm lens. This is a prime lens, and all you can do is focus it. You cannot zoom in, you cannot zoom out. It is a prime lens. So let's get into the differences. So we'll start off with styling. Because style points are important, don't you know? So the Sony, this thing is pretty cool looking. I'll admit, this is the most professional lens I have ever had. These things go up to thousands of dollars. This one was not thousands of dollars. I think if you were to buy it new a couple years ago, it was around $1,200. I bought this I bought this used from Best Buy for about $800. Now, I cannot beat that because it is in excellent condition, and you know what? I needed something with a little more versatility than the Samyang. So, like I said, styling. This one just feels more premium. It has a nicer weight compared to the Samyang. This one has it feels like either a plasticky ring, which is okay, but this one's all metal. Now here are the pros and cons. While this feels a little more cheap, there's less resistance on the ring and there's more resistance on this ring where you feel like you're really in control with this one, there's an issue. This is, I've dealt with lenses like these. They're very easy to scratch. So that is going to be a big problem with the Sony if you like your gear looking mint at all times. With that black finish, it does look really nice, but again, this is gonna get scratched. I'm just betting on it at this point. All right, so here's the Sony 16 to 35mm lens. This is an f4 lens, and when you telescope out to 16mm, as you can see, why are you focusing on my face? Why? I guess I could stop being lazy and just put it on manual focus, but that wouldn't be fun, right? So let's check out the lens right here. Watch it focus on my eye again. No. So this is the lens. It looks really nice. This, I'm gonna call it, if it's wrong, it's wrong. All right. This isn't a camera channel. This is a stream channel. But the hood lens, is it the hood lens? I'm gonna call it the hood lens. So the hood lens does come off. All I need to do is twist it off, and you could add ND filters if you'd like. Or you can not even use that hood lens at all. So really, really cool lens. Overall, very premium feeling. It does have optic stabilization. Optic steady shot, I guess is the right term for it. And you know what? It feels really good. The styling on this is really nice. It's simple, but it's really nice. I'm not gonna lie. If we were just judging lenses, I would say the Samyang looks better. I think it just looks really cool. It's just a really cool piece of glass. I like how it has a dome look to it compared to the Sony, and that orangey ring just kind of matches with the Sony A7S line. So yeah, that looks really, really good. This is a full frame lens in case you did not know, and the aperture is 2.8, so it's actually really wide. So this lens is actually really cool. Now this is why I talk about the hood lens. You can't take that off. So if you want to use ND filters, you're gonna have to use some modifications, and that is not cool. Let's see the back of it. Those little brick looking things, that's the sensor essentially. So that's what tells you whether the lens has autofocus or not. This does not have a weather seal as far as I can tell. Yeah, there's no weather seal here. So be careful where you take this out into the elements, because last thing you want is for everything to get really hazy in there and mess up your lens, because it is expensive. Let's talk about value. This one's roughly $500 plus tax. You're gonna be looking at around 530 bucks on Amazon. This one over here, which is the Sony, when they first came out, they were 1,200 bucks. I was able to pick it up, like I said, from Best Buy for around $820 used. So if we're strictly talking about value here, and you give me a $500 prime lens and an $820 zoom lens that is very good quality, it's, even though it's almost double the price, those extra 300, you get so much. So as far as value goes, unless you know you're going to be doing something stationary, kind of like just this, say you're going to be streaming, right? And this is the perfect focal length for you, and you're not going to move it. This is a really good lens. This is great value for what it is. I personally feel this is a little too expensive for what it is, but I'm not going to knock it. It is a nice lens. I would keep this around. I would keep this around if it was a little less expensive. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have too many uses for this. If you're into astronomy, then you're gonna get some nice pictures with it, since it is a 2.8 aperture lens. But honestly, even though this one's f4, I didn't notice too much difference on the bokeh. All right, so I'm gonna keep the tripod is exactly where it is at right now, and we are first going to use the Sony 16mm to 35mm lens. I'm not going to move it, that way you can see exactly how much this lens covers, and let's do it. All right, so you're able to see more of me now, huh? As you can see, this is the look I was going for. Granted, I do need to decorate these walls a little more now that you could see more, but it did give me the look I was striving for. I wanted you to see more of what I'm working with, whether it be my XLR, my keyboard, mouse, more of my guitars in the background. That's the look I was going for, and the wide angle lens definitely helped out with that. Let's test out the autofocus real quick with the Sony Zeiss. Let's see if this thing can actually track my face really well after I cover it. All right, right there. Yep. It's acceptable. It's actually pretty good. Ta-da. Ta-da. So yeah, there's really not much hunting with this lens. So you do get a lot more bang for your buck, even though it is an extra 300 bucks if you buy it used. I like the tracking on this one so much more. This lens I picked up first, and I was a little disappointed with the tracking, because sometimes it would work flawlessly just like this one, and other times it would be just constantly hunting for where my face was. So it wasn't lighting, it wasn't anything like that, it was just really finicky. So I don't know if it was just this lens, but it's not to say the autofocus is bad. It's actually pretty good for what you get here with the Samyang. The only thing is it did hunt, which would be annoying if, say I was a vlogger or something and I was out of frame, not out of frame, if I was out of focus and it was focusing my background, that would suck. So even though this is an f4 aperture, as you can see, it still blurs out the background pretty well. So if you're looking for a nice bokeh, this is totally acceptable in my opinion. You don't get the beads, but it's not bad. So this 35mm on the Sony, and as you can see, it's still pretty sharp. I have been reading that, oh, it's a little softer on the 35 end. Maybe it is, but I think this looks really good. I think this is totally acceptable, and unless you're looking to really step your game up, you're gonna have to spend quite a few more thousands. But then again, there is also the Tamron out there. What's the focal length on that one? I believe it's like 18 millimeters to, what is it? I'll just look at it right now. Ba-da-bum-bum. Tamron 18. No, it's actually a 17 millimeter to 28 millimeter. So yeah, from what I'm reading, the Tamron's a little more sharper, but it's not as user-friendly as the Sony, which I like user-friendly, so I'm keeping this one. All right, so again, this is the Sony, and I'm going to swap over to the Samyang now and see if you can spot a difference. I'm not going to move the camera at all, so take a quick peek, give you 3 seconds to look at everything, kind of measure the walls and everything to see how much the Sony gets compared to the Samyang. Again, this one's 16 millimeter, this one's 14 millimeter. So ideally, I'm going to get more space with this one. So let's check it out. So this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. It does not want to focus. All right, so this is the Samyang Lens, and as you can see, it covers a lot more surface area. Here's the problem though. You didn't see this, but well, it actually wasn't autofocusing right now. I had to actually remove the lens and then put it back on. I don't know if it's just this lens in general. I think I've heard other people having this exact same issue, but you know what? Once it's on, it works relatively well. Now, here's the autofocus. That's not bad. That's actually pretty good. So as you can see with that lower aperture of 2.8, it actually has a nicer blur to the background when things are very close to it. But let's check out the autofocus. It's not bad. Like I said, sometimes it's a little finicky. Again, I had to remove the lens and put it back on real quick, just to get it to actually realize that there was an autofocus feature on the lens. But once it gets rocking, it's actually pretty good. So honestly, it's totally usable, this autofocus. If you're going to be using this for vlogging or anything like that, well, I mean, if you don't mind not having optic steady shot, then this is totally acceptable, and honestly, it's not bad. So let's talk about the performance. Overall, on the Samyang, it's a little bit harder to track your face. Sometimes it's a little sometimes it's a little more finicky getting the camera to actually recognize that there's autofocus built into the lens, and it just won't function. But that's a pretty rare case. For the most part, it hasn't happened. It only happened once to me, but once it gets rocking, it's pretty good. So performance-wise, the Samyang gets a good thumbs up on that one. As far as the bokeh, like I said, it has a pretty nice background blur if that's what you're looking for. Overall, I can't see myself really using that feature too much with a wide angle lens, but you know what? It's there if you're really looking to do something with it. All right, so which one should you get? Should you get the $800 used to $1,200 Sony Zeiss 16 to 35 millimeter f4 aperture, or should you get the Samyang 2.8 aperture with a 14 millimeter prime lens? Personally, if you're going to be doing something like astrology photographer or something like that, astronomy, what have I done? So if you're going to be doing astronomy photography, this one's probably a better bet than this one, just because it has the 2.8 aperture compared to the f4 on this one. So let's talk about it. Which one should you get between the Samyang and the Sony? Well, I personally like the looks of the Samyang altogether, like I said, but overall I can't see myself keeping this one just because I'm so limited with only 14 millimeter. Now, if you're doing more of real estate or astronomy type photography, then this one's going to be pretty good, just because you have just a few more millimeters as far as focal length to have a little more wide shot. But then again, this one will do just fine. So this one's more versatile. So if it's in the budget, I would highly recommend picking up the Sony over the Samyang. This one's going to be going back just because it's very limiting. If it wasn't for that, then I would have kept it. Maybe if the Samyang was maybe in the 300s. I can even deal with it not having autofocus. I know they have one that's around $250 without the autofocus. So maybe I would try that one out instead of this autofocus version. I feel like you get a better value with the manual focus one, just because honestly, I can't see myself vlogging with this. Can you do it? Sure. But I think you're always going to be wanting just a little more. So with that said, I'm going to be keeping the Sony Zeiss 16 to 35 millimeter lens. I think it's going to be very, very good for many years to come. And the performance, it's really hard to beat for the $800 I spent for it. Would I spend $1,200 for a brand new lens of this caliber? Probably not, to be honest with you. I think $800 used to around $850 used is solid, especially when it's in excellent condition. But any more than that, it becomes a pretty tough pill to swallow. So if you made it this far into the video, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below which one you actually would prefer. Do you want the prime lens 14mm, or are you going for the more versatile Sony with the 16 to 35mm focal length? And if you guys like watching Twitch, by all means follow me on my Twitch. It is also Ray's Night Shift. I will see you guys there. With that said, you guys have a good one, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.